Should Nigel Farage team up with Boris Johnson? Sounds like a strange question, doesn't it? So why am I asking? Well, it's because that's exactly what the latest Tory defector to the Reform Party, Nadine Dorries, has suggested should happen. Take a listen.
I would say my answer would be that I think we need all the political talents on the right of centre putting their shoulder to what needs to be done for the country. That would be my answer.
Could that be very awkward for two reasons? One, probably the two biggest egos in modern British politics are Nigel Farage and Al Johnson. And secondly, they don't exactly agree. My estimation of Mr. Johnson over the years is that he's actually a bit of a soggy liberal when his policies are examined.
Now, I find this absolutely astonishing. Nadine Dorries left the Tory party just a couple of days ago, posted on X saying that, oh, the Tories are dead, I'm joining Reform. And then Nigel Farage at the Reform Party conference graciously welcomed her into the party.
Somebody from the real world who's worked their way up, been incredibly successful, who actually crosses the boundaries from politician into celebrity. And I'm delighted that we're going to have the experience, the talent, the hard work and the loyalty of Nadine Dorries.
Clearly, Nigel was taking a bit of a risk by bringing Dorries into Reform, and frankly, not everybody within the party is too happy about it. Layla Cunningham actually went on live TV to voice her concerns about the latest defection.
What do you think about Nadine joining your party?
Listen, I think anyone can change their opinions and their minds, and I hope that's what she's done. I hope she's joined for conviction and not for political headlines. I am sceptical because she was, as you say, the author of the online safety bill, something that Reform and myself are very much against. We don't believe there should be any censorship or freedom of speech whatsoever. And don't forget, I think she was health minister in 2020 and was a big champion of lockdowns, which caused huge was a financial disaster, an economic disaster, and really, I think, tore at the fabric of our country.
It's actually quite bold of someone within the Reform Party to challenge or criticise anything that Nigel Farage has done. And that tells you just how worried Layla is about Nadine Dorries. She questions in that clip, has Nadine Dorries really changed her views? Well, we got our answer pretty quickly, didn't we? Because within 48 hours, she's back to talking about how great Boris Johnson is, how Boris should lead the Tories and Nigel and Boris should team up. Boris, Boris, Boris. Here's the thing you've got to understand about Nadine Dorries. She loves Boris Johnson, okay? She is a true die-hard Boris Johnson loyalist. It's absolutely insane. She shows the kind of loyalty to Boris that you only typically see in the relationship between a man and a dog. Except it's not really healthy in humans, is it? Let's be honest. Fortunately, we did get an answer from Zia Youssef about whether Boris Johnson would actually be welcome in the Reform Party. Have a listen to this.
We certainly would not welcome Boris Johnson. No, that's never going to happen. And, you know, in terms of the Reform Party, the Reform leadership, look, the reality is we are a group of people who are patriots. We share values. We want secure borders. We want to restore sovereignty. We want mass deportations. We want serious law and order. We need more prisons. We need to send people into prisons. If you share those values, then you're welcome in our party. But, brother, I want to say this. Are you saying
Boris Johnson doesn't share those values?
Of course not. He threw open our borders. The Boris way, which was millions and millions of non-EU migrants flooding into the country post-Brexit, betraying every single person who voted Brexit, betraying every single person who gave him an 80-seat majority. Frankly, he was one of the worst prime ministers in British history.
OK, great. Look, I'm not a huge Zia Youssef fan, but everything he says in that clip is fundamentally true. Boris Johnson was a terrible Prime Minister. When you look around at your town and you think that, hang on a minute, it's changed. Where are all the English people? That isn't the people coming on boats, okay? That's because Boris Johnson brought millions of people here on visas from India, Pakistan, Africa, everywhere across the world. He brought them on visas. The boat people, about 50,000 a year. Boris Johnson in a single year, 1 million. Okay? Boris Johnson was an absolutely catastrophic Prime Minister. But here's the thing, Zia. Yes, you're right, Boris should not be welcome, but neither should his lapdog Nadine Dorries. So why are you bringing so many goddamn Tories into the Reform Party? Why is Nadine Dorries joining the Reform Party? How is that allowed? It makes no sense. The situation is actually even weirder when it comes to Nadine Dorries because she's the author, the architect of the Online Safety Act, the very same Online Safety Act that Reform has vowed they will remove if they come into power. Nigel Farage went to Congress in America to testify about the lack of free speech in Britain, about growing censorship and about the Online Safety Act, saying saying how terrible it was and how it needs to be removed. He's actually taken some flack for that, but he's completely correct. And yet at the same time, you brought Nadine Dorries, who created the bill and put it through Parliament, you've brought her into the Reform Party. What are you thinking? Honestly, what are you thinking? What is the gain from having Nadine Dorries in the Reform Party? Someone's going to have to try and make that make sense to me, because I don't get it at all.
The Conservatives do bear responsibility for this bill, and I'm afraid I want to be really clear. It's Nadine Dorries who really bears responsibility for it, because when I and others were campaigning against the worst provisions, you really just couldn't speak to her. She would always keep coming back to terrorists and pedophiles, and I'm afraid to use this simplistic playground language is to completely pass over just how complicated this issue is.
Of course, it's not just Nadine Dorries, because quite a few other senior Tory figures were caught lurking around the Reform Party conference. One of them was Jacob Rees-Mogg, who was escorting his daughter actually being a Reform Party member. And he was asked directly, are you going to defect to the Reform Party?
So you're not going to be following a lot of your other former colleagues and joining the party?
I'm not, no.
Why?
I think the right needs to reunite. I think the Conservatives and Reform need to come together. And I have a nasty feeling that when I'm gathered to my maker, on my tombstone it will say, "Here lies a Tory."
Fine, Rees-Mogg probably not joining the Reform Party yet, but we'll see what happens in the future. And then we saw Michael Gove hanging around at the conference. He was actually looking at the merchandise, the t-shirts and the bottles and things like that. I do wonder if he actually bought any. Who knows? Is he looking to defect? Haven't heard from Michael Gove in a while, have we? It's certainly possible. Time will tell. There were a couple of councillors who defected. There was one guy called Michael Goff, I think that's how you pronounce his surname, and he did this really awkward speech where he was just like reading off his phone. I don't understand that. I can talk to you for 5, 6, 7, sometimes 8 minutes at length, just chatting to you. Why is it hard for people to actually remember like 60 seconds of text and give that back to you? Very strange. Anyway, here it is.
Today I'm thrilled to publicly announce that I've joined Reform, a party that embodies the principles and
Boring.
Look, there's clearly a big problem here, okay? The Reform Party is letting in too many Tories. I kind of understand why they're doing it at the councillor level, because it's hard to grassroots all of those people in, but actually grassroots is what made the Reform Party so special in the first place. It wasn't the Uni Party, it wasn't Labour, and it wasn't the Tories, and that's why people found it so appealing. It was a grassroots political movement, something we haven't seen for a really long time. But the more Tories you put in there, the more it becomes like the Tories, okay? For those of you familiar with Greek mythology, it's like the ship of Theseus. How many parts of this ship can you replace from this ship before this ship is actually just this ship? Maybe that's confusing, I don't know. Look up the myth of Theseus, it'll actually make a lot of sense. My point is just this, there are some good Tories, okay? There are definitely some good Tories. I like Katie Lamb. She only won her seat at the last election, so she's kind of not tainted by the previous 14 years, and I think she's fantastic. If she joined Reform, I think that would be a great addition to Reform. But then when we look at some of these specific people, Nadine Dorries being a really key example of it, they're not good Tories. They're not going to help your party. The very first thing she did the very first thing she did was start talking about Boris Johnson. That's a catastrophe. That is not what Nigel Farage needs in his party. I think he should be firing Nadine Dorries. I think he should send a message straight away and go, you know what, actually, we made a mistake there. Why are you immediately talking about Boris Johnson? We're doing our own thing here. Boris Johnson was terrible. He helped facilitate the destruction of the country. We don't want him. Anyway, it's pouring it down with rain. I do have more to say, but I'm actually going to have to end this video soon because these microphones, well, this is a new microphone, but they can be quite sensitive to the rain. So I thought I would beat this. Some of you in my last videos were saying, oh, I thought it always rained in England. I never see it raining. Yeah, well, now it's raining, okay? Of course it is. Perfect timing. It is what it is. Look, I'll just finish. There are some good Tories, okay? Nadine Dorries is not one of them. Kick her out of the party. Be selective, try and get back to the grassroots, try and bring your own talent through. There are lots of talented people out there who would be willing to serve in a government or serve as an MP or a councillor. Find those people, don't bring the same old tired, haggard Tories and Lib Dems and try and throw them into the Reform Party, because quickly it just becomes part of the Uni Party, and that's exactly what we've been objecting against. Right, I've got to go. I almost forgot. Please do leave a like, comment, subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you in a future video. Thank you very much.